Would you trade your family home, your business, and 10 years of your life for a single flower bulb? In 1637, thousands of people did exactly that. This is the story of how a petal became more expensive than gold, and how the world's first financial bubble destroyed an empire of wealth. This is the madness of the Tulip Mania. Imagine walking through the cobblestone streets of 17th century Amsterdam. The air is thick with the smell of the sea, spices from the East Indies, and the constant sound of 1,000 deals being struck. In this world, the Dutch were the masters of reality, shrewd, calculated, and incredibly wealthy. They built the most powerful trading empire the world had ever seen. But beneath this rational exterior, a madness was brewing, a madness shaped like a flower. At the height of the Dutch Golden Age, a single tulip bulb, something no larger than a common onion, could be traded for the equivalent of a lifetime's wages for a skilled craftsman. People weren't just buying flowers. They were buying dreams of instant nobility and effortless wealth. To understand the Tulip Mania, we first have to understand why the specific flower became the center of a national obsession. Unlike the roses or lilies known to Europe at the time, the tulip was exotic and mysterious. It originally came from the Ottoman Empire, carrying with it the prestige of the East. But the tulip had a secret that fascinated the Dutch. Every so often, a solid-colored tulip would break into a spectacular display of stripes, swirls, and flame-like patterns. We now know today that this was caused by a mosaic virus, but to a merchant in the 1630s, it was an act of God. It was a unique piece of living art that could never be perfectly replicated. In a society where status was everything, owning the rarest broken tulip was the ultimate display of power, taste, and sophistication. To give you an idea of the sheer absurdity of the prices during this era, there's a famous legend of a Dutch merchant and a weary sailor. The merchant had just purchased a rare Semper Augustus bulb, the absolute pinnacle of tulips. While the merchant was distracted, the sailor saw what he thought was a common onion sitting on a counter. Being hungry, he decided to have a snack, peeling the bulb and eating it with his herring. That simple snack cost more than the entire ship's crew's wages for an entire year. The merchant was devastated, and the poor sailor ended up in a dungeon. This was the reality of the time. The tulip was no longer a plant. It had become a high-stakes currency. By the year 1636, the demand for tulips was so overwhelming that they were being traded on the formal stock exchanges of major Dutch cities. But here was the physical problem. You could only dig up and move a tulip bulb during the summer months when the plant is dormant. To keep the money flowing during the cold winter, the Dutch invented what they called wind handle, literally the trade of wind. These were the world's first formal futures contracts. You weren't buying a physical bulb. You were buying a piece of paper that promised you a bulb month from now, when the spring arrived. This innovation changed everything. It allowed the common person, the chimney sweeps, the milkmaids, the tavern keepers, to enter the market. People began trading with money they didn't actually have, betting on a future they couldn't see. As the winter of 1636 turned into 1637, the fever reached a terrifying breaking point. Trading moved from professional exchanges into the back rooms of local taverns, which people called colleges. Picture these rooms, dim, candlelit, filled with a heavy haze of tobacco smoke and the clinking of beer steins. Here, the so-called tulip brothers would gather to bid prices higher and higher in a state of collective euphoria. In these smoky taverns, a single bulb of the Viceroy variety was one sold for a list of goods that sounds like a king's ransom. 2 lasts of wheat for a lass of rye, for fat oxen, 8 fat swine, 12 fat sheep, 2 hogsheads of wine, for tons of beer, 2 tons of butter, 1,000 pounds of cheese, a complete bed with luxury linens, a suit of fine clothes, and a silver drinking cup. All of that for one single bulb. People were selling their ancestral lands and their family businesses just to get their hands on a few of these contracts. The belief was universal and unquestioned. The prices would only go up forever. Everyone thought they had found a way to cheat poverty and join the elite. It was the first time in history we saw the fear of missing out, the FOMO, drive an entire nation toward a financial cliff. The end of the madness didn't come a massive explosion, but with a sudden, terrifying silence. On February 3rd, 1637, in the city of Harlem, a group of traders gathered as they always did. A seller offered a lot of tulips for a high price, expecting the usual bidding war. But no one moved. He lowered the price slightly. Still, there was only silence. He lowered it again, and a cold shiver ran through the room. The realization hit the crowd like a tidal wave. The only reason these bulbs were expensive was because everyone had agreed they were. And suddenly, in a single moment, nobody agreed anymore. Within days, the tulip market didn't just dip, it vanished. The contract became worthless pieces of paper. People who had sold their homes to buy wind now had nothing but a few brown roots in the dirt. Panic turned into rage, then into a deep national depression. The courts were overwhelmed with thousands of lawsuits as people tried to back out their promises. But there was no money left to pay anyone. The wealth had been an illusion all along. The Tulip Mania left a permanent scar on the Dutch psyche and their history. It was a brutal world-first lesson in the difference between true value and speculative price. While the Netherlands remained a wealthy and powerful nation, the era of innocent, easy speculation was over. As we look at the digital bubbles, the crypto frenzies, and the stock market manias of the 21st century, we have to realize that while our technology changes, human nature remains exactly the same. We are still the same people sitting in that smoky 17th century tavern, hoping that a single golden ticket will make us kings. And we are always just as shocked when the wind finally blows a house of cards down. The petals eventually have to fall. This has been the Chronicles of Wealth. As you navigate the markets of today, remember the lesson of the tulip. When everyone is buying the wind, it might be time to look at the ground beneath your feet.